Recordings in progress. It's nice to see everyone. I'm with essentially the the hardcore designers of the Venture Brothers right now. I'm looking at Danny Hines, a smiling young Irish face. I got Mr. Phil Rynda with me. I got Mr. It says Mason Wittig. Are
I
you
think this is
Mason?
my son somehow got on this, so
Okay. He was one of the best designers on the ventures too. And I got Mr. Chris George with us, who, is my favorite human being. Because he has the best name, Chris George. And we don't know what his middle name is though, unfortunately. That was never disclosed.
I thought I told you guys, you're the core group. You guys know the secret, the mysteries.
No, I was never included in that, Chris George.
I think you told me, but then I don't know. Like I think I wrote it on something and then I forgot it, and it's still a mystery to me.
As it should be. Yes.
If
You
it's
have
not Topher, I don't care.
to. It's not.
Topher, Chris,
Yeah.
Topher, George. Oh, it'd be perfect.
Are you gonna disclose it now, Chris George, or are you just gonna let it kind of hang there?
I'm gonna let it hang for another 20 years.
Okay. All right. We'll check back. There will be new technology in 20 years, but so anyway, yeah, I wanted to talk to you guys. I got this entertaining thing going on YouTube, and it's hugely popular. The kids love it, and I thought I want to talk to some of the design crew on Venture, because you guys were phenomenally talented, and it was cool because it was an all New York production, and I worked on so few New York productions. The majority of work I'm known for is for Los Angeles productions. So, but you guys were absolutely world class. Some of you are living in Los Angeles. Some of you have lived in Los Angeles. Chris, did you ever live in LA?
I never made the move. I came really close at one
What
point.
almost got you out there?
Uh, Netflix. They got the closest to getting me out there. And
Was that via Phil or
yeah, yeah.
good work? Good work,
Back
Uncle Phil.
you came so close. Yeah, 2019. I was almost gonna make the move. And they would have paid for it too.
As they should, for sure. I want to go through so as I just said to you guys off camera, I want to go through everybody except we'll get to Uncle Phil because Uncle Phil I have already spoken to. But so in order of who I'm seeing via Zoom right now, Danny, how did you get involved with the ventures, and was it directly out of school, or like how did you first hear about it?
Well, my best friend, Joey Capabianca,
Right.
he got a job animating on So Smart at World Leaders.
I have never heard of that, but okay.
It was it was a vanity project by a rich person. It was like a children's preschool thing.
Okay.
So he got me in, they called it an internship, but I worked for free for a travel stipend to
Okay.
be in the studio. And then eventually I got a seat next to Siobhan Mullen,
Right.
who was the board supervisor on Venture.
Right.
And I made sure to leave my good drawings on her side of the desk. And I tried to be very nice to her. And
Right.
and yeah, and
You most Irish charm that you could possibly have.
yeah, and Siobhan is Irish from Ireland,
Siobhan's
so I
very
really
Irish. I happen to know this because I'm her
Yes.
ex-husband. Yes, or one of her
Right.
ex-husbands, I should say, at least. Yeah.
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 So somehow you ended up with my portfolio, and
Yeah.
somebody told me that you liked it, or that you said that this kid has some potential or something, or that maybe we should hire this kid. And I was told that like there might be a job for you doing on Venture doing board revisions. And then what was this? I can't even remember the studio, Atomic, something like that. It was they had it's a big studio in New York opened, Atomic Cartoons.
What did they
They
do? I
they
don't
had
know.
a keg. They were doing Nate the Great. They had a beer keg in the kitchen was the big thing. And
Okay.
they offered me a job, and I went. It was George Fort's first day. George Fort, the background
Right.
lead on
Right.
Venture.
Right.
It
Right.
was his first day. Siobhan took me to talk to George. She was like, "You should talk to George before you take this other job because George just came from that studio."
Oh.
And I talked to George, and he was like, I would take Venture Brothers if I was you. Things are a little shaky."
Okay.
I went in.
And you said, but there's a keg over
I
there.
know, but basically I got them to turn the potential gig into a real gig.
Okay.
Uh, and I took that job, and then 2 weeks later, 3 weeks later, that other studio was gone.
Wow. Okay.
So yeah, and I started
We
on storyboards, and then
right.
at one point, myself, Joe Capabianca, and Joe Croson were working on a pitch book together, and I was doing the character designs.
Okay.
And Chris McCulloch saw my character designs and went to Rachel and said, "Hey, maybe Danny could do character design." And they had me test, and I got that job.
Yeah. So, just as a blanket statement, like, I know all of you because I was on I was on Venture. I was on Venture season one as a storyboard artist, and that was a little that was a little different than a lot of other storyboard jobs. But anyway, so I skipped season two, and then I came back for season three, and I was a quasi art director. I was the board supervisor as well as the character uh, design supervisor. And yeah, I had seen, as I was starting, looking for board artists, I had seen somebody, Danny's portfolio pass by me, and Danny was one of those, naturals because essentially what I'd seen was basic thumbnails of his, but they were board drawings, but they were all just shapes and lines. But I could tell exactly what he was doing. And to this day, I always say that's how I know if somebody can really cartoon. If they're drawing simple shapes, you don't have to draw faces, you don't have to draw, detail, anatomy, any of that stuff. If you draw basic shapes and I understand what I'm looking at, then I totally get it. Were you just out of SVA?
Yeah, pretty much. I think I was maybe 2 years out by the time I got the board revisions gig. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Now, yeah, so I'm confused. Like this is a long time ago and I barely remember a lot of this stuff. So you were a character designer on which season?
I was I was character designer on 4 and 5,
Okay.
led by Martin and Chris, in that order.
And no,
And then yeah,
so
revisions on season 3.
season three. Now, who is on season who was designing Martin? You were on season three, right?
Yeah.
Who else? I don't remember the design team, honestly.
Matt Jenkins. Uh,
Okay.
um, three. Rick Lacey, I think,
Yeah,
maybe.
it was Rick.
Right. That's right.
And was
Okay.
season 2 was Chris Martin and Danny Kano, is that right?
I believe so. Yeah.
I think Matt was on season 2 as well.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, because he's sitting right behind me because we had that tiny
That's
office
right.
space on Fifth Avenue. Yeah, Matt was there.
Okay. Wow, it's all a blur to me. Let me jump to Martin. Martin, how did you first get in contact? How did you become associated with the Ventures?
I got the job because I think Phil was leaving at the time, right? Phil was leaving for California,
Right.
and there was like an opening. I was working at the time with some of you guys, I think on Capot, I think.
Right. Oh my God, I'd completely forgotten that. Yeah.
And then that tanked, and yeah, I remember sort of being notified like it's over. It was like one of those things where it's like it's done. Uh,
Yeah.
Thank you everyone for your work. And I didn't know what I was gonna do or like where I was gonna go. And I I remember making phone calls that day, like like calling around to all my friends, like everybody
Yeah.
I knew, like what's is anybody hiring? Um, and I don't remember, my memory's really fuzzy about all of that, but
Yeah.
I don't remember, Phil, if you reached out to me or if I reached out to you. I might have reached out to you, and I think Phil was telling me that he's going to be leaving, and I met with Chris I think in Phil, I think you were there at the studio. This was, I think,
Which Chris?
Chris McCulloch.
Okay.
I think this was before World Leaders was at its location. I think like down on what 34th or wherever we were. But it was like a different location. And I didn't actually test for this show. I just remember doing some drawings and showing Chris some stuff, and I I just sort of started that way.
Okay. Okay. I mean, and I don't know actually your like your background before Catbot, Martin. Where like what did you done before that?
So I went to SVA. I didn't graduate. I did the Disney boot camp
Okay.
out in Monterey, California. I came back. Actually, before that, I worked on the Beavis and Butthead movie at MTV. I was doing layout. Then yeah, I did that during a summer. Went to the Disney camp, came back. I worked at Jumbo Pictures on the Disney's Doug that they had.
Right.
I worked at Nickelodeon on a couple of like developmental projects. Um, gosh, where else?
Did you
Yeah,
work at Stretch? Were you at Stretch, Martin?
yes. Yeah, I was also that's like a whole time where I forgot. Yeah, I was at Stretch Films for quite a few years on Courage. I think for like 4 seasons.
Oh my God,
Um,
Stretch.
'Cause I think that's how I first met you, Martin, was I think you came and spoke at SVA in
oh,
Stephen Gaffney's class, and you brought like your portfolio from Stretch. And I was like,
right,
wow, this guy draws so well. And it's, it doesn't all show up on the screen, but it was like I remember early informing like like people's draftsmanship and kind of what they do professionally. Like sometimes they don't always like line up because like you draw incredible, and Courage is interesting looking show, but like I just remember the work you were doing on Courage and then your personal work and me being like, it was like, I don't know, I just never kind of it was like early days of like making sense of like what people can do isn't always what they're paid to do. They're
right. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I forgot about that. That was a
Yeah, because I had forgotten that you worked on I mean Catbot. So I was the art director on Catbot. Catbot had a large staff actually
right.
because
It,
you were character layout
yes, yeah,
but it's funny because I always associate your work with really kind of structured, voluptuous kind of humans and animals, and I'd forgotten that you did. But we had a killer staff
it was. Yeah, it was an amazing.
on Catbot,
George was there
and
also, and like yeah, Phil and
yeah, yeah. So let me jump to Chris George then. I mean, I should just say Chris. I always call him Chris George because his name is short. His names are short. But so Chris, you were so Martin was character layout on Catbot, but you were one of my. I was the art director, and you were one of the character designers on Catbot. But you were also like Phil. You were on season one of the Ventures, right?
Yeah, started season one. Look, guys, look at this. My shirt. Remember when they gave this to us? I think at the end of
wow.
season one, I found it in my drawer. I still have it. Like this little swag we got after season one,
That's
wrapped.
sweet swag.
It might turn into dust on this video chat.
Yeah, it's so old.
That'd be awesome.
But yeah, season one was like, I think it was 2003 when I started on
shit.
season one.
How did you find out about the show?
I remember when they were doing the pilot, which I didn't work on that, and I was at Danny Kamanyan's place back when he lived in Hell's Kitchen.
Okay.
We were all hanging out there, and Danny was like, "Oh, Chris, there's a show I worked on, this pilot," because I think Danny worked on the pilot. Is like, yeah, the drawings look like your drawings, like it's kind of like your style. I was like, really? And we watched the pilot, and I was like, this is really interesting. Like, and I was like, yeah, it does kind of look like the way I draw a little bit. Like I could see some similarities. I was like, oh man, I wish I got to work on this. In time, I think I was in like one of those ASIFA life drawing classes.
Okay.
They used to have them. They held them at SVA after work, and I ran into someone there, and they're like, yeah, they're testing for season one. You should try it, give it a shot.
Mm-hmm.
And God, this is so long ago. I must have walked over to the studio and I think the old Noodle Soup studio was on like 8th Avenue down from Port Authority.
Yeah, like 39th. I was trying to figure this out the other day because I walked past, I think it. Yeah.
Yeah, it was on like it was like not great. It was not great. The neighborhood was not great back then.
No.
But very New York. I walked down
Yeah.
there during the daytime, got a test, and like yeah, they gave you like 5 days to do it. Take a home
Okay.
test, and you bring
It
it
was
back.
a character design test?
It was a character design test. Yeah.
I've never taken nor have I given one. What does a character design test look like?
I think this was the only character design test I ever took. And I never got a job like this before by like taking a test
Yeah.
and like submitting it. I always get jobs based on recommendation.
Yeah.
Or I'm inside of a studio and like something happens and my name comes up and I get a
Yeah.
call or whatever.
Sure.
But this test was like, it's like draw a cop, and it was like, oh god, it was draw a cop, draw like a creature, I think maybe draw a superhero. It was so long ago, but like it
It
was
was
basically
it was a
go ahead.
cop, it was a
Yeah.
prostitute,
There you go.
it was a dock venture turnaround,
Uh-huh.
Wow.
it was a ray gun, and I feel like there might have been a car we had to
And
do.
they all walk into a bar
That's
and
right,
okay.
because season 1 we were doing props as well, right? It was characters and props. They had us doing a lot. Yeah. Phil, you got a better memory than I do. So yeah, that was it.
Yeah. Well, yeah, but on Catbot, not to turn this into the Catbot chat, but you guys were doing characters, props, and color. At least you didn't have to do color on Venture.
Well, later seasons.
Did you?
A little bit. We did like
I didn't know that.
it's like Martin, Danny, and myself. I feel like our like season 5? Was it season 5? Did we do a little
Okay.
color in season 5? I feel like we implemented a little bit of color into the roughs.
Yeah. We were doing suggested colors in the roughs for sure.
How did that come up?
I think it was I don't know, because I was like low man on the totem pole and still very much kind of like gawking at all of you guys. But to me it seemed like it happened organically, where
Yeah.
like Martin and Chris would do some that way, you know, like if it was a big new character for an episode, you guys would really get into the exploratory, and it kind of maybe I probably would imitate it because I wanted to be like you guys, and then now everybody on the team is doing it. You know what I mean?
I see. I see. So it wasn't requested and it wasn't suggested. It was just something that you all kind of undertook creatively.
Yeah, yeah. I think Jackson Public saw it a few times and he's like, "Oh, I really like this. You know, like if you want to do it some more, throw it in whenever you have time." And then
Okay. And
it just
was it taken up usually, your color suggestions?
yeah, sometimes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. Interesting.
I mean, they obviously made their choices once it got to the color department. And if they didn't like something that we did, they'd throw it out. But
Right.
I'd see final colors sometimes and like, hey, I think a little bit of our stuff actually seeped through into the final product sometimes.
Okay.
And it was rewarding to see that.
Okay. Wow, that's fascinating. I didn't know that stuff. Uncle Phil, so you were also on season 1. And last time we spoke, we talked about how you got that job. You were fresh out of the CIA or something like that. I can't remember exactly what. But what do you recall about your first week? Do you know, like, did you have direction? Who was the character? It was Mike Foran was the character design supervisor, right?
Yeah, Mike Foran was the character design supervisor. I will go back to maybe day 1 minus 1 week or minus 2 weeks, because this is where I think it's more fun to talk about. Was
Okay.
I tested, I had another job doing like that indie video game side of things. And then I got a call from Noodle Soup and they said, "Hey, are you available for some in-house freelance? We're bidding on a project to redesign Sunny from Cocoa Puffs." So I said, sure. So I went into Noodle Soup, and Chris George and I got called to do this job. So this is the first time I met Chris George, and they put us in a conference room. Mike Foran launched us on this design, and I immediately made an enemy of Chris George. Chris George hated me.
Completely.
Starting that week.
And still does, sadly. He told me off camera. What happened?
Uh,
What'd you do to Chris George?
I just tried to talk to him. All I tried to do is talk to
Oh,
him.
you did that.
I was right out of school, bushy, but I was gonna say bushy-eyed. I was probably
Bushy-eyed and bright-tailed.
bushy-tailed, bright-eyed, bushy-tailed. We got this assignment. We both had the same assignment. We're sitting next to each other, and like in my brain, this was like a collaborative assignment. Like Chris and I were both tasked with this thing, and like we were going to be working together and pushing each other and doing this. And I
Okay.
remember we like got the handout, sat back at the desk, and I like looked at Chris, was like, "Oh, it's so nice to meet you. Like, how do you want to do this? Do you want to do roughs and show each other what we're working on?" And like Chris looked at me and went, "How about you do your drawings and I'll do my drawings?" And then like at the end of the day, when we show them to Mike, we'll show them to Mike. And I was like, oh, like Chris just like slapped me down into the like, I'm not sharing
That's
anything with you.
I,
Who the
I,
hell are you?
I should give my side of this because Phil, did we ever
please.
talk about my thinking behind this moment when we first met? Your drawings were so good, and I was afraid that everything that you were, because I'm like a sponge, and I was afraid if I was going to see your drawings, your designs, it was going to seep into what I was doing, and I didn't want it to influence me so much that we would essentially just give them the same product. So I was like, okay, I need to stay clear of this guy because I'm just going to get so influenced by everything that he does that my work is going to come out looking like his, and we're just going to give them the same thing, and they're going to be like, well, we don't need both of you. And I knew that I'd be gone. So I was like, no, I want us both to have our own inspiration. And then when the time comes, they'll see like two very different like paths. But I'm sure it came out really harsh when I talked to you. I'm sorry. I'm
It
sorry.
was
Well, you didn't have to
so
stab him, I think, Chris, is the thing. But you both got hired.
so yeah, so
Yeah.
we did that. That was 1 week we got paid to do that. And I think on like day 3, they came up to us and said, "Hey, like, we're gonna finish this, but like, hey, surprise, this was sort of a test to see if how you guys work together, how you communicated, how you took an assignment. Like we're offering you both the design job." And I think they offered to us midweek, Chris. I think that was like the way I remember it is like we were going to be the two character and prop designers in season 1, and that was their way of kind of testing us out.
Oh, that was connected to Venture? I had no, see, I didn't put that together. I had no
But that
idea.
doesn't make sense, Uncle Phil, though, because there's such divergent styles. I mean, Sonny the Cocoa Puffs bird and Venture, how does that
Well,
dovetail?
I tested also. So I tested
I
after
see.
they saw my portfolio. So I tested.
Okay.
Yeah, and I don't know, maybe Foreign told me this, that it was like, oh no, Miguel told me this. Miguel told me this because
Oh,
because it was sort of like I was right out of school. People knew Chris from Spy Groove. Were you on Spy Groove, Chris?
yeah, for a hot minute.
People
Yeah, that's
people
right. Yeah. There was
people knew
there's some MTV people there.
yeah, people knew Chris's work. I was new, and I think the studio was just testing us. And then also like what happened during that time was they decided not to do character layout, and Rick Lacey was on the character layout team. And then Rick was supposed to start as a character layout artist, and then they made the third design slot for Rick to join us because of the character layout shutting down. But thank God, because I don't know if we could have survived if it was just Chris and I. Like I think it was a lot of work. I think it was great to have that third person. Personally, I was in way
Oh
over my
yeah.
I was in way over my head. You knew what you were doing. I was in way over my head.
There's no way that just two character designers could handle that show, even in season 1. Like in later seasons, I feel like there was like more and more and more work to be done. But season 1 was probably the lightest. But even then, it's just like I feel like we had just enough. Well, we had me, you, Rick Lacey, then we had Amanda, who I think
Cleanup.
was cleanup, which I
Oh,
think
that's
that was
right.
the only season. Was that the only season we had a cleanup person? Because I feel like other seasons afterward, we had to clean up
I
our own stuff.
when I came into season 3, everybody was cleaning up their own work. In fact, that's how I learned to ink digitally, was watching you guys. One of yous told me, I can't remember which, it was just to like draw your line quickly, and then always have your fingers on the Command Z, like,
Mm.
draw Command Z, draw Command Z, draw Command Z. You're always looking. Maybe it's you, Martin. I can't remember. But I was watching you guys because I had no facility for drawing digitally by that point. It was a mess. I was still learning. But yeah, you guys you were cleaning up, but not on season one.
Yeah, no, season one was on paper, pen and paper,
I was gonna ask
physical.
that
Right.
because I remember there being actual drawings that we would see, or at least photocopies of drawings. There's like, you know,
Yeah, we had real
yeah.
paper. I learned how to butt cut.
I forgot all
Danny,
about
you
that.
don't you're too young, Danny, for the butt cut, but Chris and Martin know the butt cut.
Hmm.
Describe a butt cut before people start like envisioning something.
The butt cut was like it was you would do your drawing, and then if you had to revise it, you would classic post it over, but then you would use an X-Acto. So we all had X-Actos, right, at our and like cutting boards, and you'd X-Acto over where the revision was, and then you'd have to X-Acto through 2 layers of paper, and you'd remove the bottom layer, the wrong part, and then you would put in the new one, and then you'd tape it down. And it was like a perfectly flat, no shadow, and then you'd white out over the line.
White
Yeah.
out that cut line, so when they Xerox it, there wouldn't be that like cutout line around it.
Wow, I never whited out.
It's like on top of the tape on the back of the paper, you had to like white out that line, like the whatever the X-Acto line was.
Wow, you guys were real pros. I never did that at
Our butt
all.
cuts were firm. We did firm butt cuts.
Well, I always said you Venture had the best butt cuts I've ever seen. That's always been clear to me. Do you remember, Danny, do you remember like your first week? Do you remember like any direction that you were given, or were you just thrown in the deep end?
I also tested. I think it was like a slightly modified test where they like didn't have me bothering to do a turn of dock because I had access to approved turns of dock everywhere, and I like designed a couple supervillains and stuff. Um, I don't remember my first week. I remember like intense panic. I remember though like the feeling of like, oh, I'm actually learning to draw now. You know, like even just like having to put down a truly clean line. Um, that was my big takeaway was like you can't let your anxiety destroy you. You have to finish your work anyway. And like, oh, like this drawing looks clean and professional in a way that I haven't gotten to before, you know, and I think it was just like the professional expectation uh pushes you to keep working on your drawing. I'm always trying to talk to my students about this. Like I always refer to it as like the last 10%, that within the last 10% of a drawing after you've got a tight rough, there's like an infinite number of choices again that happen in that last 10%, and that's the separation between student work and professional work, and it's why so much student
Hmm.
work looks as if it's fan art or unfinished somehow, and it's because they don't care about anything in the last 10%, because as a student, if you get a design all the way to tight rough, tied down, turned around, you said everything you have to say. You're not interested in the width of the final ink line or exactly which, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
but that's everything in professional work. Um,
Yeah, I mean, but the thing also that I always know about, I mean, because I don't know how many of you have been teachers, but my time as a teacher, I don't think of it as a success because I just always feel like, look, they just gotta suck, they just gotta suck for like years, and maybe at some point they'll remember what I said, but I have no idea. But yeah, no, that's exactly true. I mean, that is the thing. And the only way you learn that is by watching other people around you, and they're giving the extra 10% at least, because they have to. And then you realize like, oh, that's what you got to do.
mhm. And
Are you
talking
talking?
about talking about that's what you got to do. Um, I remember distinctly looking over at Matt Jenkins and realizing that he used templates for his characters, and it like blew up the entire idea of cheating or like being able to like, I gotta be good enough. Like, you know what I mean? Like all of that kind of like adolescent,
Yeah.
childish idea, like this bravado that comes from like deep insecurity of like, I just have to be good enough. And it's like, no, you just have to get the job done the right way. And
Right.
whatever path you take to get there, you know. So I started doing that a lot. I would take one of Martin's designs and I would build my design off the top of it. And what do you know? Chris really liked those roughs a lot. So like, yeah, there was a lot of rapid learning of what it really meant to deliver professional
I
work.
mean, that was the smartest thing to do, particularly on that show. Does anyone remember how many weeks you got to design a show? I don't remember.
It's like 2 weeks, right? Is it 1 week to design and then the second week to clean up
Yeah.
Clean?
in turn?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, the second
Yeah.
week, like I think corrections and cleanup if there were any.
Yes. So everyone can, corroborate with this. Like that's unheard of for most productions. 2 weeks is kind of an outrageous timeline for most shows, or in your history, is it not?
It was at the
Rich-
time.
Yeah,
Sorry,
curious.
I'm to
No,
bogart the
go, Danny. I'm
conversation.
curious.
By the time I got to LA and was working at Cartoon Network, I was doing 2 weeks overlapping. So the second week of the first episode was the first week of the next episode. And you do that 3 episodes in a row, and then you get a skip week to catch up.
Holy
So
shit.
I remember thinking Venture was tough and like, you know, you have no extra time, get this shit done. Um, and then getting to Cartoon Network and being like, you want to do what? How fast? And you know, yeah.
Right. Maybe I'm misremembering, or maybe I just don't even know. Yeah. But Venture, yeah, Chris George is right. It's like as the seasons, you know, as it gained in seasons, like, the amount of characters and the amount of work ramped up. That was one of Jackson's thing. He kept seeing like what in his head, what was possible, and he kept adding to it exponentially. So it started getting harder and harder and harder. And yeah, for most shows, I don't know, I might be wrong again. I know for like Primal, some characters, or in fact, most characters are like, it's just front and back and you're done. And some characters might be a template, or might not be. It depends on what Gendy's seeing. And some characters need, full rotations, and you do that as well. But, for sure, that's probably true for Venture too. I mean, there were some rotations, right?
Yeah, I think most of the time, like per episode, we were just giving characters the front three-quarter and the back three-quarter treatment. But
Right,
then, like, occasionally, depending on how the character design is going to be used, and if it's like they're going to be really hefty character, like if they're going to be
right.
if the focus is going to be in more scenes, then they might get, or if they're doing action thing, maybe they'll get more of a full turnaround. But I feel like most of the characters didn't get that much as far as turns.
No, the difference was like for most of the shows I worked on. I mean, it was funny because like Chris Jackson loved to have armies. He just have loved to have armies clashing. I'd be like, every time I'd look at a board, it's like another fucking army. But as opposed to like, a lot of productions today, or even back then, oh, we got to design the armies clashing. It was just like, no, just design one army guy, and then like, the overseas studio will reproduce it like 1,000 times, like, and draw these armies clashing from that one little character design. That was kind of crazy. Oh
I
shit.
remember I remember the first time I designed like a what happened, Steven? Did
Oh
something
no,
happen?
I thought you guys froze for me for a second.
I don't know
Uh,
if you're recording anymore. Oh no, it is still recording. Oh,
Is
never
it?
mind.
Okay.
I remember like the first time I had to do like a military guy. I remember Chris being like, "Oh yeah, these are the guy, like these guys versus those guys." And I put like a triangle on a patch and he was like, "Oh, so these are the triangle guys." And I was like, and he was kind of picking on me because I think he was like just wanting me to be a little bit more specific. And it sticks with me a lot is like I just put a shape that was like generic patch, but that
Right.
was like not enough for him. It was like he wanted a little bit more ideas, and I love that.
Right.
I think it really like oftentimes Chris didn't want a lot of ideas from us because it would be in the script, and he really wanted us to execute on it. But when there were little moments for it, I appreciated that he wanted us to push. I also remember early in season one, I don't know if you remember this, Chris, like we would get launched on characters, but we wouldn't always be given drawings. And at some point we were like, hey, does McCulloch have sketches or anything for us to start? And like we got handed a stack of drawings, and then we were like, holy shit, Chris is an amazing cartoonist. He's got all this stuff. And we just went straight to the photocopier, made little packets for ourselves. I think I still have mine somewhere.
I still have a whole bunch of them in like a file
And for
folder.
whatever
I
reason,
think
yeah,
I
like
still have mine. Yeah.
when they were launching us in season one, they weren't giving us much of Chris's reference. And then we had to go like dig for it and find it. And once we did, like, of course, like once we were like using his work to build on top of, things got approved
Yeah.
a lot quicker.
But his,
Right.
his sketches are I miss those sketches. They're so
So good.
fun.
They're
You have little
phenomenal.
writing bits on the side sometimes.
Yeah.
It's so
Yeah.
amazing.
I think I carry that to this day from myself. That was also something Gendy always wanted too, but I think I learned it from Chris first, which is he wanted specificity. He didn't want just like random character or generic character. He wanted, I mean, I remember walking on the street with him once and he'd be like, that guy's funny looking. That's the kind of that's the kind of guy I want in the show. And I would like try and remember to sketch it, because he wanted something that looked like could be the guy walking down 26th Street. He didn't want just like character B or whatever. And to this day I do think of that. It can't just be generic character. Phil, I've forgotten the word launch. I almost never think of this stuff. Were you walked through like the script or?
I don't think so. I think like if I remember, the idea was like we'd all get our scripts Monday mornings. We would read them, and then there would be a meeting with Mike Foran. We'd have some kind of conversation. But like we rarely had much one-on-one time with McCulloch. Mike would take our designs and go do the review. Like, and I think that sort of as we went through season one, I feel like Chris started interacting with us a little bit more. Mike wasn't as involved as we moved through season one. I don't even know if Mike's role, I mean, you kind of took it as a supervisor, Stephen, but like Mike wasn't really drawing that much. Occasionally I'd get like a draw over of something, but I don't think he was drawing all that much for us.
Okay.
And then it wasn't always like a real launch. I think we would have to ask questions more than anything. But yeah, I don't know.
Okay.
Do you remember, Chris? Was there like an actual launch meeting?
I don't remember us getting like a launch meeting where we'd all be in the conference room or anything like that. I just remember we get our scripts and we'd each go through our scripts and I guess mark if did we mark it or did Mike do like a color coded thing where he'd mark like the designs that we had for the episode. I think there's like a color coded thing that he would do. So that
Yeah.
and I think I remember like Jackson Public coming by and giving us some one-on-one feedback, maybe. Or if we had a question, like he'd talk to us, but it was no like overall like meeting thing. Not in season one, at least.
Okay.
That sounds right.
Okay. Do you, boy, it's been a long time since I've thought about this. It feels like to me, it was one of the more difficult shows to draw, not work on, not any of that stuff, but just to draw, because Jackson's, he's got a really idiosyncratic way of structuring faces. It's got a lot of angles and you got to get it right. Does that ring bells with anybody?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I mean, where on the scale of like, all the shows you've collectively all worked on, like where is the ventures? Is it like really, really hard or in the middle or? And I'm saying like not time wise or personality wise or anything like that, just in terms of drawing.
I
I
think
would
for
say
me.
really. Oh, go ahead, Chris. Go,
Oh,
Chris.
sorry. I just gonna real quick for me going back to like what Danny said, where he's like, "Oh yeah, this guy, his drawings they look like your drawings." It was like, yeah, I think there was something to the style of that show that for me it was like a good fit. Like for me, it was one of the easier shows to draw.
Okay.
And like maybe part of that is like it was only my second character design job.
Okay.
Not counting the Cocoa Puffs, but like I did I did one character design job at MTV, and then between that there was a bunch of other like layout and inking. Inking was Spiker with inking, and then I went back into character design for Venture, and I sort of like, I don't know, I feel like maybe it caught me just at the right time.
Hmm.
You know,
But
as my development as an artist, it caught me just at the right time where it was sort of easy for me.
right, 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 right. Well, I
So
mean, you all made it look easy for sure. I mean, each and every one of you, and you know, in your own ways, because you did it beautifully. But just for me, I think it was difficult to get all the. I remember being confused about how to draw Baron Underbite. Phil, you might remember this. And
Oh yeah.
I had to go to Mike Foran because I was in the first season. I had to go to Mike Foran and say like, I don't know how to structure this guy's head. And you know, he sent me to Rick Lacey to sort of suss it out. But I just remember there's a lot of shape. You know,
Yeah. It was
to
very idiosyncratic. Rick Lacey did Baron Underbite, and I
right.
think like because Chris, even though McCulloch is an amazing animation artist, he's a cartoonist. He's like a comics
Yeah,
guy. So I
yeah,
think he doesn't. There's like a loose structure behind stuff, but he's more of like a shape guy, and
yeah,
his own drawings. You know, honestly, like I remember again, probably not. Now I would have hoped it was day one, but at some point, like Dan Close, Lloyd Llewellyn came up in the middle of
yeah,
season one, and it was like, oh shit, this unlocks so much of Chris's taste. I mean, we probably said to Chris, like, what do you like? And then he started telling us about the things he was chasing after, and it just made sense. And in the same way, Danny mentioned like sitting next to, you know, Chris and Martin, like learning, like I had Chris George, and
yeah,
like Rick was awesome. Rick was like, you know, Rick kind of was just confident in his drawings. And then, but like George was like the pro. So like I just, when I would get stuck, I would just lean over to Chris, and Chris's work was just so structural. And Chris would flip his drawings and lightbox them on the back and solve his structure. And I remember being like, I had heard this theory about flipping a drawing, but then to like watch someone actually do it and utilize it
yeah,
was like, you know, it was like, you know, Danny talking about the difference between student work and professional work, or like the idea of using templates, like first job out of school in a professional environment, like all of these like mysteries get revealed. So venture for me was really hard, but also like I had no clue what I was doing.
yeah.
So hard, and I was lost. So thank God I had Chris George to my left.
I mean, I don't know. You did pretty well, Uncle Phil.
Baked it.
Martin, do you remember? Was there? Did it suit your personal styles?
I thought it was tough. I really did.
Yeah.
I
In what
sort of
way?
I leaned on Chris George too. I was lucky enough to sit next to him, and I learned a lot. Yeah, it was tough for me. I didn't really come from like a comic book kind of background.
Okay.
The shows that I worked on were like silly, kind of stretchy, like cartoony shows. I mean,
Right.
Courage being one of them, and yeah, I thought it was pretty tough. I
Okay.
was lucky to get, you know, I would talk to Chris and he would give me drawings and sketches of his, and I think a fair amount of like ideas for what he wanted.
Okay.
And I sort of leaned on all that as much as I could until I felt like I had a grasp of like what he wanted to see, and sort of how it all worked within the show. But I thought it was
Gotcha. Yeah, I found it tough. I mean, it was rewarding, but and then for me, you know, I did have a comic book background, although I didn't draw very many action adventure superhero things at all. But I had a facility for it. I had a backlog of stuff in
Mhm.
my head. So if I couldn't, you know, draw like Jackson, what I could do is like, well, I'll try my Toth or I'll
Right.
try my John Buscema or something, and that might appease Chris. It was funny that they didn't in season one. They didn't have you guys talk to Jackson slash Chris. We keep interchanging his name, but because he has very specific, very specific ideas about what he wants. It's strange that they didn't just send you right to him.
I think it was learning the pipeline, figuring out the reviews, and it was before Doc was like a full-time writer. So
Okay,
Chris went into season
Chris was
one
everything. Yeah,
writing everything, and
yeah,
then you know, those scripts would come in later and later, or our drafts would be looser and looser. So I think there was a lot of like, Chris wouldn't even necessarily come to the studio because I feel like he was, you know, at his Astro Base studio
Right.
writing.
Right.
Um, but you know, I don't know. We eventually, you know, we did. I feel like we built a great relationship with him and did get to know his taste and stuff.
Yeah.
But it was a little bit of a process. But it was quick. You know, we
Yeah.
did 13.5 hours in 6 months. No skip weeks. The idea of a skip week was crazy, and they were all half. They were 22s.
Yeah.
Uh, did we do mouth charts, Chris? I can't
Uh,
remember.
I
I
season
think the
one.
directors. I think the directors might have done.
I don't know. I feel like I remember seeing them, but yeah, I think like Miguel. I remember seeing Miguel's mouth charts. So I think Miguel was mostly doing the mouth charts, and maybe Mike Forn was doing some too. But I don't think we really did many. And see, I can't remember. It was
I
like
can't. Yeah. Whoa, this is, yeah,
so
we
long
should,
ago.
well, we should call this chat we can't remember. Because yeah, I can barely remember. I don't remember mouth charts being around.
Season
Um,
two, definitely season two, we were doing some mouth charts,
okay.
but I don't know if season one, season two onward for sure, but
Okay.
I don't remember season one.
Chris, do you remember I'm sorry, Danny, what were you gonna say?
Oh, I distinctly remember by the time I got there, every handout was centered around Chris McCulloch. He would give you his
Yeah.
character sketches for any character that already existed. I know Martin was definitely doing mouth charts. Season 4, I was starting to copy those, and then by season 5, Chris, you had a pretty solid method of how you were approaching them, animating them in
Yeah,
Photoshop, which I still use. I don't always demo it in class, but I've used that all over the place.
it's so much fun, right? You get to see them come to life in front of your eyes a little bit.
It's great. It's great.
I gotta
And
say, mouth charts are kind of fun to do, yeah.
yeah, yeah.
It's
I
a
feel
You
little
like
know,
bit of
Cat
animation.
I feel like the animating the mouth charts was that like cat. I think on Catbot we did that in Flash. So I
Yeah.
bet. Did you take that with you into Photoshop when you went back to Venture?
I must have. I learned so much on Catbot. You know, even though we weren't there for that long, but like I feel like Stephen, like there are things that I do when I draw that you taught me that like sometimes I've got like a little Stephen in my head talking to me about color. Like I remember you gave me a
That's
tip
actually
about
me. I'm actually in your head, Chris. I'm really tiny person. I give you color advice. You should never take my color advice.
well, I take it. It's fantastic advice. It was about basically like the tone of color and having color tones together. One's a little darker than the. It's like it sounds like kind of basic, but like I use it all the time, making sure that my colors aren't all the same tone around
Okay.
each other. There was that. I remember you gave me advice on like composition within face.
Oh
Anyway,
yeah.
there's
Okay.
that stuff. There's a whole bunch of other things that I took from my experience working with you on that show. I probably also got the mouth chart animation stuff from working on Catbot too. Yeah, because I remember, we were doing color
Yeah.
in Catbot. We were working in Flash for me the first time
Right.
working in Flash.
For me as
Uh,
well, but not
um,
for Phil.
apparently not
Phil
for
was a
Phil.
seasoned pro.
I was a seasoned liar.
Yeah, how long was Catbot? I keep picturing like we were at a year, but was it like 3 months or something?
I
I
did
feel like
eight
it was,
months. I
yeah.
did 8 months.
We must have been at it 8 months. You missed it, Danny. You would have been part of the
I,
crew anyway.
it's so funny. I have no memory of Catbot, of course, at all, except it looms so large because everybody had just gotten off of it by the time I entered the studio.
Everybody just got fired from it.
Yeah,
Everybody just
yeah.
got let go. Danny, what was your entry to the style for Venture? Like you have you follow comic books and stuff, right?
Yeah, I mean that's grown, kind of chasing you guys to a certain extent, but 100%, um, it was. I think the reason Chris saw something in my drawings that he liked is because I'm obsessed with Daniel Clowes.
Okay.
And when he found out that I like Daniel Clowes, I'm sure that his esteem for me grew a lot that day. And he started bringing me his original issues of 8 Ball and dropping them off at my desk. And, you know, we would start talking movies on cigarette breaks and all that stuff.
Okay. Yeah, there
So
was a
yeah,
lot. There was a man. There was a smoking culture
yeah.
on
I
Venture.
mean,
I've
I hate to
forgotten
say
about that.
this, but like me and Joey Caps, we've both quit by now. But like we would talk openly about like, hey, if we go have a cigarette when Ben has a cigarette, we get to talk to the producer about what's happening at the studio, and it makes it easier to get jobs. And it was like the same with Venture. It was like, I'm nobody, but I can go have a cigarette when Chris has a cigarette. And, you know, we have similar tastes in music and movies and all that kind of stuff. And I'm happy to listen if somebody likes to talk. And, you
Right.
know, I kind of built my relationship with him purposefully watching when he walked to the elevator and then going to follow him and take cigarette breaks. Yeah. But
Wow. That's
another thing I realized, I don't know, this is a little crazy, but do you guys remember how Chris grips his pen? Do you guys remember
oh shit. That's
Chris's
right.
pencil grip is like
Yeah.
this?
Yeah.
So the first time I was like, let me, so I held my pen like that, and what it forces you to do is you pull very like it. The only natural stroke is top to bottom vertical strokes, and as I started drawing that way just a bit, it's like, oh, everything in this show is just like it's very vertical, it's very like
Mm.
long, and it's very like all these falling shapes, you know, like the goatees and the noses and the like the even the angle of the top of the head to the chin. That unlocked something for me. It's I don't actually I would never hold my pen like that while I was working, but sometimes like the very quick rough, I might try to imitate it and just get a bit of his energy or something.
holy shit. That's brilliant. I never thought of that.
I was so desperate to not drown because I never, you know, I mean, well, I started on board revision and I absolutely had the experience that you had of like, how do you draw these characters the same way twice, you
Yeah.
know? And then character design was easier in some ways because you
You only
just
had to
have to
draw them
draw your
once.
character once and then it's
Yeah.
everybody else's problem after that.
Yeah.
Well,
Um,
and board revisions on Venture was character layout.
Right.
right. Yes.
It wasn't board revisions, right? Like
Yeah.
it was
Right.
it was fast character layout.
Yes.
Right.
Basically.
And
Which
it
was a great
was
crash course.
it was a great crash course. It was a really hard job. I mean,
Yes.
yeah, that was really difficult. I mean, it was so difficult that season two, Siobhan was the storyboard coordinator, and under that, she was supposed to do storyboard revisions. But it was by season three, it was so clear that it was such a massive job that she became, you know, the storyboard revision supervisor, and I came in
Right.
as storyboard supervisor because to deal with it on the top end, and she would deal with it, and there was a lot to deal with. You know, and you know, have you all worked? I mean, you know, just for my three viewers out there, you know, there's a Los Angeles, quote unquote, Los Angeles style of designing a show, and then there's the quote unquote New York style of designing a show. And the New York style is you design everything up front and you give it all to the storyboard artist, and they do whatever they want with it. But they have to follow those designs because that's what's going to go overseas to be animated. The Los Angeles version is much different. The Los Angeles version is like let the storyboard artist do whatever they want, and we'll design from their show. We'll know exactly what's in the board already because it's in the board. We'll just take it from the board. We'll redesign it so that it looks good on screen. We might not take everything, you know, verbatim from what the board artist. And it was funny because I would try to explain this, having been educated in the Los Angeles way. I would try to explain this to New Yorkers, and they'd be like, this to the storyboard artist, and they'd be like, "I'm not designing anything. That's not my fucking job." And it was like, well, but you have more control then. You could do whatever you want, really. And I could see a case for both. I mean, and it's just however anybody wants to design a show, but that's the way Venture was designed. It was all top loaded, and then you know everything had to follow that. But you've all worked in the. I mean, you've all worked in the Los Angeles method, right?
Yeah, it was an adjustment for me because I spent so many years working on Venture. And
Okay.
then I think I didn't start working on an LA production until around oh 2019,
Okay.
you know, and
What show
it
was that?
It was it Inside Job? I think it was Inside Job. It was like
Okay.
my first proper LA production.
Okay.
We did a I think season 7 of Venture was like part of it was like LA and part of it was New York, but it was still Venture.
That's
It
right.
was still structured like a like Venture, I think. But
Right.
but Inside Job was like, oh, this is very different from. I remember getting yelled at because I colored a character. I
Ah,
colored some character designs, and the art director was like, "What are you doing?" I was like, "Oh yeah, I'm just doing my thing. Sometimes I color these." He's like, "No, you don't do that." I was like, "Okay, I won't do that." And they beat it out of me. So no more coloring character designs, and getting the boards ahead of time was like so different for me. And just like, oh, I have to follow. I have to actually have to stick pretty close to some of these board designs. I can't just come up with it all myself.
yeah. No, I mean, if I was, that uh, uh, design supervisor, I'd say just come up with something better. Or it's you don't lose what's great about the board drawing. You adapt it, but you have to plus it. You have to make it better. The reason why I bring that up is Danny reminded me and Phil reminded me. It's like, on Venture, storyboard revision was character layout, and all the expressions came from storyboard revision. It wasn't, that wasn't drawing expressions wasn't a character designer's job, as it generally is on a Los Angeles production, or nailing down specific expressions and stuff. So yeah, that was a difficult job, but it was a hard show. It was a really hard show to work on. Does it come up in conversation professionally often for you? Does it come up in your mind often?
When it
Venture?
comes up, I get an enormously positive response.
Okay.
Like it's one of the things that you're like I won't bring it up because it was so long ago that I worked on it. You kind of assume, oh, people aren't thinking about this, and then you're like, oh, when I
Yeah.
worked on Venture Bros, like, oh my God, um, and online I've seen it seems to be widely considered, I think, one of the best looking limited animation kind of adult television shows that has
Yeah.
been made, and I would agree with that. I mean, it's interesting, like we're kind of talking around this, so you've got gears turning, but um like as a board revisionist, board artist turns in a pass to the board. On a lot of shows they might, I know they got notes and stuff, but I know there was also a time when it was just like, it's not worth it sending them notes, give it to Chris goes in with a pile of post-it notes and completely reboards, at least half the show.
Right.
And so a big part of board revisions was then incorporating those into the final board.
Right.
And and you think a lot, you see a lot in animation. You see a lot of incredibly talented people bouncing off of these projects. Going back to what you were talking about earlier, like what somebody's capable of and what you know of their professional work are not always aligned.
Yeah.
And Venture was certainly like, I hope Chris wouldn't mind me saying, he had the most talented artists in New York, and it did feel a lot that we weren't good enough for what he wanted us to do, you know? And I'm enormously grateful for that. I grew so much during Venture. It was amazing. Chris is a mad genius,
Yeah.
and you look at the way a Studio Ghibli film is produced, and it could only be thus, like it
Right.
must come directly from Miyazaki's brain, and it must be an entire studio of people working to serve one person's vision.
Right.
It doesn't seem like it's the loveliest experience to do that for Miyazaki either. It's not always, I love Chris, but it wasn't always like a walk in the park. Um, to not be good enough. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
it's hard sometimes.
Yeah.
But the
I
show looks great, and we made something that really stands the test of time. And I, I don't. I think I'm at a place personally where I don't expect what media I like or how much I like the thing that turned out and my experience of working on it. I don't expect those to align at all.
okay.
And if anything, I would probably expect that if I had an absolute blast, wonderful time, we're probably making maybe a B- show.
Okay.
And if we're making an A+ show, it's gonna hurt. It just is what it is. Like I don't know. Animation costs so much, and you don't get compensated for blood, sweat, and tears. You know, like anyway, there's my
No,
little rant about
well
emotionally what
said.
it felt like to work on Adventure Brothers. So proud of it too, but like
That's a good rant.
you can't have one without the other, I
No,
think.
a couple things I wanted to say. Yeah, it sparked my memories. Was that I remember speaking to some animation executive, I can't remember who. They were a Cartoon Network person, and saying like, that Venture was some sort of bizarre outlier for them because for what the show cost, which was pretty minimal, like somehow like they got the studios overseas to like give their A material or to work twice as hard, and that executive couldn't figure out how that was going on. The other thing that I wanted to say was like, yeah, I mean, I've worked with a lot of auteurs at this point, and that every moment of Venture was Chris and Doc, for sure. And yeah, he did have the best of the best in New York, and somehow, that was always secondary. It was there to completely feed what was going on in Jackson and Doc's head. Do you have what are your recollections overall, Martin? Do you have a feeling?
Yeah, my favorite part about Venture Brothers, I think, was Chris's like openness to allow us to contribute in a way that we wanted to, and to come up with like ideas, to create characters, and he gave us these like opportunities to sort of like shine on our own too, and I think a lot of times like we sort of impressed him with the ideas and kind of concepts we came off of, and that would spur like a new idea of his to want to like expand on that and do something else with this character. And
Yeah, I know that would terrify me when Chris would see a possibility to be like, "Oh fuck, now we got to do."
but I
Now there's
love,
more we got to do.
yeah, I really loved and appreciated that because in a lot of studios I work for, like, like what we were talking about before with like California's West Coast versus East Coast's way of doing this. Yeah, I miss that a lot, working at studios, unless you officially have like a sort of concept position or concept artist position where you get to, come up with a lot of these ideas. It gave us like an opportunity to sort of like contribute in a different way.
Right.
And yeah, and that's probably my favorite sort of memory from it, was just bouncing these ideas off of Chris and him getting excited about it and coming up with new stuff, and yeah, just kind of, having like our hands on characters that we created as well. So
Right, right. Yeah. Um, Chris, how do you, what's your takeaway from Venture? What's your big memory from Venture?
I say sometimes, uh, I've said this to friends and I've said it to my wife that like I feel like I grew up on that show. And in a way, yeah, I kind of did because when I started on it, I was in my 20s, and the last thing I worked on, I was in my 40s. So it's like that show went on for so long,
Yeah.
and it was such. I'm going to amend my previous statement. I said that it was easy for me, but I'm listening to you guys and I'm thinking a little more about it. And the first season of the show was a struggle,
Uh-huh.
and I was fortunate to have both Phil and Rick on either side of me to sort of learn from them and like soak up as much of like their amazing talent as I was drawing on that show and learning.
Yeah.
And I don't think it really clicked for me. And I think I remember Jackson Public saying this to me too. Season two, I think by the end of season two, the show finally, the style clicked. It, I've forgotten how bad my drawings were in season one. I think I've pushed that away in my mind, but like they're not that great. But season two is when it clicked for me. And I don't
Okay.
think it would have clicked if if I wasn't around those amazing artists, if I didn't have Phil around me, if I didn't have Rick, if I didn't have Martin. Because I remember like season two, I would do something and then I'd see Martin do something. I was like, oh man, he really raised the bar. It's
Martin
like
was a
I
fucking monster, and especially like, I mean, anytime we needed animals, I would go right to Martin. I mean, and it's always the guy that can do animals that you know is the fucking badass,
just brilliant, brilliant work.
Yeah, and to this day, you're known for your for drawing animals, right, Martin?
I guess, yeah, I don't
Or not.
know.
I don't know, but I don't remember, Chris, going back to you. I don't remember. Everybody sucks their first couple jobs. I mean, you don't stop sucking until like 20 years
Wait, I don't
into
want to
your
leave out. I
career.
don't want to leave out Danny too, because Danny, when I was working with you, I soaked up a lot of like amazing stuff from your drawings as well. I'm not going to
Well,
leave you
that's
out.
the beauty of working at a studio, though, is that's how you get better because you look at the guy, the person to the left of you, look at the person to the right of you, and suddenly you realize, like, oh fuck, I gotta up my game, and that's the beauty of it. That's how you
I'm
learn.
so fortunate to work with all of you. Like really, really, I feel like it's been such a blessing that I got to work with you guys. Like, I,
Yeah.
yeah, seriously.
I
And I
I
don't get
feel
these
that
opportunities.
way about you, all of you.
Well, thank you, Stephen.
I absolutely agree. I mean, we're never all in the same room together. You guys make up such a disproportionate percentage of like who I'm trying to be professionally as an artist. Because that was the first studio I ever went to or worked at. Even actually in the very first location, I brought Miguel a big pile of animation drawings, and he wasn't very impressed. He was like, "Yeah, I'll see you later, kid." But like, I remember getting that So Smart job, but it behind me was Chris and Martin and Kano, and Rick Lacey was like blowing in and out of the studio, like some kind of roguish knave. But like, yeah, you guys were just like giants to all of us, like the young artists at those studios. We didn't talk to you, but we talked about you all the time. And it'd be like, oh, Steven left a drawing out on his desk. Go look, and it was like,
That's where
yeah,
that drawing
so
went.
yeah, I can't Chris George, once I will never forget it, and I hope I'm not projecting any negativity. Certainly, I was in like a terrified place, and I was never like, "Oh my God!" But I don't want to be negative about Venture. It was an amazing opportunity. But Chris, at one point, you turned to me and you're like, "Danny, why do you keep doing this?" And you showed me one of my drawings, and I was like, "What?" And you're like, "The back leg is bigger. It's like wider than the front leg." And you were absolutely right. And it was like a thing that I had just based on like how my roughs would be, like I don't know, I would just pull the rough and like I had a tendency to fatten up, I think the right side, like the right leg or something, but the front leg would be forward and it would be narrower than and like I just couldn't, I didn't see it. I never saw it. And you like turn the lights on and I could see my drawings in a totally different way. And then the knock-on effect of like, wait, pay attention, like, really look. So yeah, I mean, I truly couldn't imagine who I'd be as an artist if it wasn't for you guys specifically. Like, so yeah, thanks guys.
Sorry, I was so blunt.
No, thank you for being so blunt. Look,
Yeah,
I've been
you've
Mr.
ruined the
Nice
lives of
Guy.
two of our artists are here, Chris
Yeah.
George, already.
I'm a
So
menace. Yeah.
now, yeah, now Martin's gonna have his terror of Chris George story. I'm
No,
sure.
no,
He's
please,
frightened of. We're all
please
frightened of you,
don't.
Chris George. So I see Uncle Phil Rinda busting a gut back there. Um, Chris, Uncle Phil, tell us what's your takeaway from Venture?
I mean, everything that everyone said, I feel the same about it. Like, it's such a, wasn't my first job, but it was my first like real studio job with people who kind of, really knew what they were doing. But
Right.
also, I realized how many people didn't know what they were doing around us all. Like, I think that it was first season, it was a new show. This kind of show wasn't being made in New York. None of the people in Noodle Soup ever worked on a show like this. So, like, everyone was trying to figure it out. There was so much weird stuff that we did on season one that turned into like the show, but it does sound like it kind of the production smoothed out and became more of a like a pipeline that functioned. But yeah, I don't know. It was a great experience, I didn't like, there's so many things. Like I thought I was gonna be like a Disney guy. I wanted to be that. And I think something about working on Venture like made me appreciate cartooning more. Meeting you, Stephen, totally changed the way I looked at drawings. Learning so much about drawing from Chris, George, like also it's funny because like the smoke break thing you mentioned, Danny, like I remember going out, I didn't smoke, and I would go out on smoke breaks with McCulloch because it was time for Chris, or we had late lunches, and remember sometimes we'd catch him smoking outside and be like, yeah, we're gonna hang out with him just to talk to him. Just to kind of get to know him. So that whole like relationship part and that team part was really massive. I don't know if I have like a poignant takeaway other than to say it was like a huge highlight. And when people mention Venture, people who are fans of Venture love Venture because that show rewards its fans, right? When you stick through it, like, things get paid off, the onion continues to unfold in this way that is just incredible. So the people who love Venture, like truly love it, which is awesome. And I guess like also it's cool that like some of these wacko rogues gallery people that we designed in season one that were kind of filler because no generic, like every villain should be an interesting, unique villain, some of which came from Chris, some didn't. Like the fact that some of those characters like have gone on to like have stories written about them and they're, it's really kind of cool to see that and exciting as a designer to be like, oh yeah, I influenced something that like now has stories written about them, and that might be someone's favorite character. And it was just it was literally a throwaway for the yard sale episode, like it was like one of those kinds of things. Like, how many characters do we need? Like, all right, we're just gonna come up with a ton of wacky stuff.
I'm gonna step away for 1 second because I had to pee because I just had a big coffee.
Let's talk about Steven and uh, uh, it's awesome to seeing all of you guys. It really is great. And like Danny, I know like it's funny about Catbot because Chris, Martin, and I sat like back to back to back, and McCulloch was down into the hall doing board revisions or whatever he was the board supervisor on Catbot.
That's
Okay.
right. I forgot about that.
But he was there to like buy time because he was just getting ready for season two. So like there's definitely a lot of all of us together. This is like, I remember the first time I met you, Danny, was at a bar with Ian, and I remember that's how we met. And then you wrote something nice about me on your blog at some point, and
Yeah.
I was like really moved by it, but also like that weird moment of like, oh, I'm not necessarily just the young guy anymore. Like, all of a sudden I was, like I had done something that people cared about. So
Mhm.
it was really, I don't know, meant a lot, Danny, for me, for sure.
Thanks for bringing that up. I have always kind of wondered, like, because we kind of were ships passing in the night. We never worked together in New York, but you've always taken very good care of me. And I was like, why? Why does it feel so nice to me? Well, good to know. I remember that doing blogspot posts, and I think at one point, I don't know if this is the one you remember, but I was out in LA for the first time working on DJ and the Fro, and there was I was renting for $500 a month a futon in a cockroach infested apartment in Hollywood. And I had been looking at some black and white comics you had done, probably for like one of your party zines. And I kind of aped your style to do a comic about finding roaches in the bathroom.
That's hilarious. Oh, I gotta find that. I want to see that comic. Send it to me.
I'll track it down and send it your way.
I don't know. To me, like it's that Venture's awesome. Is a great show. Super proud of the end product, but like the environment, working with getting to meet all of you through that show, in some way, shape, or form, like really is that, I mean, what you said, Danny, about like a great experience doesn't always make for a great show. Like I would call Venture a great experience. It did make for a great show. It was very difficult.
Yes.
It was a challenging experience, but it was still a great one. And like the experience is typically great because of the environment and the people around you and like feeling inspired and like, but I guess one thing I'll say, and now I'm rambling, was like those scripts would come in and they were great. And I didn't know. I don't think I quite realized how great they were until Catbot, when those scripts would come in and they weren't great. And I was like, oh, I must be reading this wrong. And then maybe Chris or maybe Martin or maybe even you, Steven, at some point were like, no, like like Venture is like an anomaly. Like the source material on Venture like really is entertaining and excellent. Whereas like, Catbot isn't Venture when it comes to
Yeah,
storytelling and
I
writing.
I do remember having this conversation with you, and by that, even by that point, and that was a long time ago, but I was still a lot older. I was jaded already. Probably years I was jaded, and I remember you saying something to the effect like, but everything we work on should be good. Why is this not good? And by that point, I knew like, the majority of what you're going to work on is just shit. Absolute shit. I mean, that's one of the reasons, why Venture is kind of an outlier. It's not my favorite production that I ever worked on. In a lot of ways, it's one of my least favorite productions. But it is one of those things where it's like it's a touch point where, you could say some shows and if they're cartoon fans, they know what it is. Which is great, which is, a lot of us are talking about productions like I didn't even know existed. you know, um, because there's just so much out there. But it's nice to work on something people remember.
Yeah.
I think. But yeah, I mean, I should let you just go because it's probably dinner or nap time or something for you all. But I guess for me, yeah, it was a really difficult production. The 2 or 3 seasons, I'm not even sure what it was. I was on it for various reasons. But I will say, I was always proud of the artists on that show. And I felt like I had if I was the supervisor, I had a fantastic staff. And when I wasn't a supervisor, there were a lot of really, really brilliant artists on that. Bill Pressing as the original storyboard supervisor was just a monster, just phenomenal. Bill could have and did and end up doing just about anything he wanted. And Jackson was, and is like just an amazing cartoonist. I mean, no joke. I was trying. We were courting some storyboard artist. And Chris and I were in this meeting, and I said, Chris is one of the best storyboard artists I know, and he affectionately chuckled and he said, "You never say things like that to me." And it's true. I don't heap praise easily, but I could have. It was true. Chris was one of the best storyboard artists I'd ever known. I mean, there was a lot of things, for me that I realized like I was a shitty storyboard artist. That's one of the things I took from Venture. It just wasn't my thing, and therefore like I really, when I had the opportunity to just become a character designer, I really took it because I felt like storyboarding isn't my thing. Another thing I'll bring up is like we had some of the weirdest motherfuckers on that production, and I won't name names, but there was that, I think it was that storyboard artist that we were in a meeting with. Like he ended up being like insane, just like batshit insane. Where like I as an adult man couldn't deal with him, and like I had Rachel Simon, the producer, who's probably like 20 years my junior, like deal with him. I'm like, she's the producer, let him deal with him. Just like there was some, every production has insane people on it, but like, Venture had a couple of really, really fucked up people on it. A lot of nice people too. No, no.
Animation can draw out some interesting characters. New York itself, really interesting characters, and like Noodle Soup were leaders, like as this, studios. I thought they were odd. I don't know. We shouldn't talk about it, but like, do you remember Chris when we realized that they were shortchanging us money on our paychecks? Do you remember the season
Oh,
one?
this is season 1. Yeah,
Yeah,
I
so they were
do.
they were paying us.
Oh,
Um,
I forgot.
They would pay us on the 15th and the 30th or something, the first and the 15th, but they would pay us 2 weeks worth. But like they were basically shortchanging us. So in a year, we would get paid for 48 weeks
How
of
did we
work.
figure it out? Who
We
was
did the
the
math.
one?
I think like this sounds like something I would have done, to be honest. Like I think I just looked at the paycheck and went, this doesn't look right. And then there was like the CCO, was his name Nathan? And
Yeah,
I
yeah,
think
yeah.
to his office and was like, "Hey, I'm curious about this. Like, why, or maybe to Lipson, right? Dave Lipson was our season 1 line producer. Maybe I said something to Lipson and like, I just remember like flagging it, and then like they had to change it. They had to, I
Yeah,
think
yeah,
we
yeah.
all got a catch up back pay check, and then our paychecks changed because they were literally. I don't think it was criminal. I don't think it was like malicious. I think it was just like a bunch of people who were trying to figure this out.
Wait a
Yeah.
minute.
It
So
was
Didn't quite.
Danny was nodding too. Like Danny did that.
Not on Venture Brothers. So you fixed
Oh,
the problem for Venture Brothers.
okay.
But certainly World Leaders pulled that one out of its hat with
oh
different producers. So I mean, whatever. It is what it is. No matter how much money you give an animation crew, they will spend all of it before they finish. So, and trying to do it in New York and everything, like it's tough. I get it. But that's 100% like a just known scam that they pull when they feel they can get away with it. It was like I said, totally different person who pulled it on me. Um, but yeah, that absolutely happened. But
I don't want to end on a sour note, so I'll think of something positive to say, and you could
can
all
I say
jump.
something? Can
Go
I
ahead,
say
go ahead.
something? I think there's something about Venture. I mean, there's a million incredible things about Venture. We've all said it. The people, it's so easy for me to romanticize as my first big studio thing, and it's where I learned the difference between a cartoonist and an animation artist, all that. But I think there's something really kind of great about how Venture was so obsessed with these early Hanna-Barbera limited animation cartoons, which their reputation when I came into the industry was this is the worst cartoons have ever looked. And and then as you go on, you're like, but they had Alex Toth model sheets. They had the best designer ever.
Yeah.
There's something really instructive in that to me as a character designer. Best character designer, or, maybe best cartoon draftsman of his age led to what is widely regarded as some of the worst cartoons. But Venture was so obsessed with those cartoons and that world, and through the unique way that Chris ran a production and the way that the show was made, I think you could make an argument that Venture is the height of what limited animation has achieved. Like limited television animation where you're really working toward a budget. I'm hard pressed to find many examples that outshine Venture. Um, and on a story level and all of that other stuff, Chris is a genius. Chris and Doc are geniuses. But yeah, I'm very proud to have been involved in that pipeline. And I've tried so many things. I've tried working on shows where you say you can't do better than the boards. Just do exactly what the boards are doing. And I've tried pulling away from the boards, and I've tried being hard on designers, and I've tried being easy on designers. It all makes a difference, and it's all alchemical to some level, to some extent. But certainly the way that we produce a show affects the way that it comes out. And we got something right with Venture. Like it really came out right. So yeah, I'm very proud to be a part of that.
Yeah, like against all odds, in a way, in a strange way, like it just turned out really well. One thing, yeah. So eventually, the this was after my time, but eventually the show didn't end up with Titmouse, which has a tremendous reputation as a good studio. The place where Chris and Phil joined Noodle Soup morphed into this place called World Leaders. I've worked at a lot of places. I don't think I'm gonna get in trouble by saying those were bottom of the barrel. It was the one place, but that was the bottom of the barrel studio. Just wretched for anything. All the wonderful things that we could say about the production and Jackson, and the characters and the scripts. Like that studio was just the fucking pits. just the pits. Probably, the Skid Row of all places I've ever worked at, and that's totally fine. That was part of its charm, and it had its own inner drama. And I mean, the guy that ran it, when it turned into World Leaders, his resume was that he ran a bakery or something.
Yeah.
Just
Cake
insane.
Company.
Yeah, just insane shit like that. I got yelled at for moving a bookcase once.
He's the only
Um,
person that's ever sexually harassed me at work.
oh
No,
no.
it wasn't that big a deal,
Uh,
but I was like, that's technically harassment.
Okay.
I got a while you're down there while I was tying my shoe. So I guess that's pretty well harassment. Yeah.
Wow. Wow.
Whoa.
Yeah. Oh man, I'm sorry, Danny.
Oh, it's fine. I didn't, you know.
I was trying to do it all that time and you never noticed. So, but all right. Well,
You're
anyway,
always telling me to stop telling you I love you. I don't know.
that is true. But you know, tell an Irishman to do that, that's not going to happen.
No.
Any final thoughts? Any final words? No,
I'll
nothing.
just say I thanks for getting us all together. I love all of these humans. Like Danny said, I don't think we've ever been in a room together. We're still technically not,
We're
but
still technically not.
I love all of you. I think we should get McCulloch to do a big venture reunion, and we should all go to Comic-Con and have a big party or do something because it'd be fun. It would be fun, and it's a great show, and it should be celebrated. And I miss all of you, and it's awesome to see you all.
Yeah,
It's
same.
it's
Here,
awesome to
here.
see everyone as well. Before we go, we should say a special thank you to Phil's mom and dad, um, who, you know, Anne-Marie and Rich, two amazing individuals. And to thank everyone on the panel, their moms and dads, their families as well. I love Chris George. I love Martin Wittig. I know I love Phil Rinda. And I love you, Danny Hines. I love you. I love you all. Good to see you.
Love you guys too. Great to see you.
Yeah, same. Good to see you guys.
All right. I'm gonna try to end the recording. Let's see if I could do this. Oh, wait a minute. Wait a minute. Okay. End meeting.